How's it going, everyone? This is Mitchell Mander here, and welcome to another review of Pokemon Journeys. Today we're going to be covering episode 28, which involves Ash and Go still in the Galar region from the previous episode, in which Go catches Sobble, and then other shenanigans happen. So, before I get into the review, if you like this type of content, be sure to like and subscribe as I cover this series on a weekly basis, or whenever the episodes come out. Anyways, let's get on to that review. So the episode begins with Ash and Go. They're still in the Galar region. They're still hanging out from the events from the previous episode. So it looks like it's the next day. So they woke up, they're eating some breakfast, and their breakfast is literally curry on ice. It's various meals from the Sword and Shield games that they're enjoying. So it's pretty interesting. It took them this long to finally show off curry on rice in the anime. Not complaining though, but it's nice to see that the meals showed up in the anime finally. Anyways, they're hanging out, they're eating, and that's when Sobble, who was following them towards the end of last week's episode, it shows back up and it starts eating the food because it's invisible. It can just go invisible, so it just starts eating everyone's food, which causes a bit of a ruckus. And Sobble eventually shows itself, and it starts crying, which causes everybody else to cry along with it, and there's nothing that anyone can do, and it eventually runs away. As Ash and Go are searching for Sobble, they actually run into Nurse Joy, who explains, talks about Sobble, kind of, where it usually hangs out at, and also explains that, when it touches water, it becomes invisible. So it might be hanging out in that water fountain over there. So Go walks over there and he thinks that Sobble's there, but he doesn't know for sure. He's like, hey Sobble, you want to come with us? And then he just suddenly just gets the urge to throw his Pokeball because this is Go after all. And he manages to catch Sobble, literally, like right off the bat. More on how I feel about that later. Anyways, so they're looking into, Sobble's background on the Pokedex. Meanwhile, Team Rocket, now this one, I will say this is pretty funny. So Team Rocket, they're trying to go after Ash and Go, and every time they go after the Brat Boys, they just get blown away. And they've been blown away all over the place, and they've ended up somehow back in Galar. And that's when they run into Ash and Go again. So they try to go and swoop up their Pokemon, and they get blown away again. So I will say right now that was pretty funny. While all this is going on, Riolo's over here, he's digging on the ground. And as he's digging, a Silicobra is actually hiding underneath the dirt. And it comes out, and Go has the brilliant idea of sending out his newly caught Sobble, which he does not know its moves, out to battle his Pokemon. Way to go, dum-dum. At least Sobble has a type advantage, but Sobble is a newly caught Pokemon. But anyways, Sobble goes invisible, and it actually performs pretty well. Hits the Pokemon with a Water Gun and Pound. Does well for a little bit until Silicobra gets a little bit more serious, and I believe it's Sand Attack it uses here. So Sobble's no longer invisible, then it gets whacked in the head, which causes Sobble to cry, and Silicobra, starts crying as well, and then runs away, and Sobble decides to run away as well. And Ash and Go run through the city looking for Sobble, and Go eventually spots it at the river, and it jumps in the river and swims away. Meanwhile, Team Rocket over here, they're kind of depressed. They keep failing to capture Ash's Pokemon. I mean, they've been trying it for years, and they continuously fail, so... Well, further depression here, because they just can't even catch up to the kid right now. But as they're depressed over here, Morpeko shows up for the first time in the anime, and is stealing all their food. It literally eats all their food. And Jessie gets really angry and throws one of the cans, the empty cans I believe, over at Morpeko, and it misses it and hits Sobble instead. Dang, Jessie. Kind of a little bit too much there. A can? That had to hurt. But anyways, they see Sobble and they see that Ash and Go are pursuing it, and that's when they decide to capture good old Sobble here and throw it into a cage. Team Rocket call upon their glorious gotcha machine, which we all love, don't we? Anyways, they get a Magnezone and an Armaldo out of this, which I will give Team Rocket some credit here. They actually used a pretty cool strategy to keep Ash and Go at bay here. Armaldo over here uses Metal Claw on the ground, which separates Riolu, and Pikachu, and then Magnezone uses Supersonic Waves here, which causes them to basically be rendered helpless, as the sound waves are just too loud for everyone. And Sobble's over here, he's pretty helpless. He can't really do anything to help them at the moment, and they're even telling him yep, this is what happens when you don't surrender yourself, and then give us Pikachu instead. And then Sobble, this moment was kind of interesting. I will say this was a good tie-in right here, where it remembers, it's walking through the cities, it's being ignored by everyone, but then it, Go reaches out to it. And that's when it decides to help out Ash and Go, and it somehow breaks out of the cage, because the cage was a cheap cage that Team Rocket bought because they couldn't afford it because their budget was low. And Sobble ends up, crying, and it causes them to get sad, and Team Rocket eventually blasts off. Go reaffirms its, friendship with Sobble and stuff, and wants them to come along with them, and that they'll be a good duo together in the future, and Sobble is super happy. And that's how the episode ends there. But before the episode comes to a complete conclusion, Team Rocket, they're pretty depressed again because they failed once again, and that's when Morpeko shows up again. He wants more food. But Team Rocket doesn't have any because Morpeko ate everything. So it goes in the hangry mode and blasts them off, and that's how the episode ends. Now, I will say that I did like the comedy in this episode. Like when Team Rocket were trying to capture Ash, but they kept getting blown away, and they're literally going through all the regions. I did like that, and I did like the part, there's a part where Jesse and James, they have Sobble in the cage, and it starts crying, and Team Rocket subsequently start crying, and they start saying like, oh, you guys are so cruel, and that's when Ash and Go are over here like, wow, we sound like the bad guys in this situation. We sound like we're the ones that are trying to capture Sobble, which I thought was kind of funny. I thought that was pretty good how they, tied that in. And I did like the strategy that Team Rocket used in their battle against Ash and Go, holding them at bay, which, it kind of bothers me that Team Rocket were doing this well in the episode, and if it wasn't for Sobble being there, they probably would have lost. Alright, now I'm going to be completely honest here, and I'm not trying to be too, harsh on the series, but I gotta say that this episode was a big disappointment in my opinion. Especially Sobble's capture. That was probably the biggest disappointment in the episode. I personally would have rather it happen later in the episode, because it really didn't have good build-up at all. I'm sorry. It did not have good build-up. I know that Sobble was following Ash and Go, and I did like that Go, did the Ash thing where he's like, hey, you want to come with me? The problem, though, is that Sobble got caught in the lamest way where Go didn't even know that Sobble was there, and he just threw his Pokeball and caught Sobble, and that was it. I'm sorry, but that was bad. Really, really bad. Everything about that was bad. And, it does tie in at the end pretty well, but I'm sorry, but I am not a fan at all of this capture. This is probably one of my least favorite starter captures in the entire series. But my biggest concern of all is, how is Sobble going to be handled in the future? Is it going to be like Reboot, which Reboot is pretty much featured in every single episode ever since it was caught as a score bunny? Or is it going to be like other Pokemon in Go's collection where it makes occasional appearances and it's, it shows up in the lab episodes, but it's not, a focus Pokemon like Reboot? Which I will say right now, I think the former is going to happen because Sobble's one of the starters in the Sword and Shield games, and it's going to be, promotional material for the games like Reboot is. So I don't think the latter is going to happen. It still is a concern though. What I do think is most likely going to happen, if they go the route of, it's like Reboot where it's showing up in every single episode from now on, is that I feel like Reboot is probably going to end up getting jealous of Sobble at some point, and maybe that triggers Reboot's evolution into Cinderace at some point. But I am still a little concerned that Sobble is going to be lost in the mix. I hope not. It's just a slight concern I do have. So hopefully they handle Sobble well in the future. So that's all I got for this episode review, guys. So overall, I found this episode to be quite a disappointment, if I'm being honest. Kind of a mediocre episode, especially considering last week's episode was actually kind of good. This episode, on the other hand, was a disappointment. The capture was a disappointment. A lot of parts in the episode were kind of boring and just dragged on a little bit. I will say that the comedy was pretty good, especially with Team Rocket. And then the crying stuff was kind of funny for a little bit too, but overall, yeah, not a very good episode. So I gotta give this episode probably a 4 out of 10. My least favorite episode since episode 9. So guys out there, what'd you think of the episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Post your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. I will talk to you guys later. Stay safe out there, everyone, and have a great day.